Anyone want to take me on? Oh, go on then. I was starting to get a little worried that I would never get the chance to corner Catherine, although at the very least her drinking was not slowing down. As long as I could get to her, I was certain I could get what I needed. The issue at this point seemed to be getting to her at all. Margaret was pacing about the room, strumming a pleasant tune on her lute. I could see Flora reaching for a book on the corner shelf. However, when she brought it to a chair by the fireplace, she held it over her knee rather than open it to read. Margaret! With a wicked grin, Flora began to beat the book with her palms. A driving rhythm was created. It was one that Margaret clearly knew, as she immediately returned with a lute melody that fit snugly between Flora's makeshift drum beats. Oh! Moira ran over to the shelf and retrieved a small wooden flute. As soon as she had an opening, she began to play along with Margaret and Flora. The tune was wild and a little jagged, but it was one everyone in the room seemed to know, save for me, of course. Catherine began swaying back and forth in her seat, and I could see Charity's head moving underneath her hood. Adela, however, was breaking into a full-on dance, jumping and twirling like a madwoman. I must admit I was stymied. These people were unrecognizable, and I had no idea what to do. There was no way I was going to dance, and I wasn't particularly interested in getting another chess lesson from my betters. To avoid looking foolish, I did the one thing available to me to feel like I belonged in the room: drink. I was no stranger to wine. I had it with every meal, even when I was still an anchoress. But this was a new experience. Nobody in this room was drinking to quench their thirst. They were all drinking for the sake of drinking, chasing a stupor that was expressly discouraged, if not outright forbidden, by all the texts all of them held sacred. What was I to do? I was conscious enough to understand that this was not the time to proselytize. I closed my eyes briefly to pray that my transgressions would be understood. I was here to seek justice for a murdered woman. So far, I haven't found any of that justice at the bottom of any of the bottles I've drunk. I was here to clear an innocent man's name. The songs kept going and going. It could have been one long, shifting song for all I knew. They played the entirety of American Idiot. I didn't recognize any of the tunes this makeshift band was playing, but all of them proved popular with the room. I found myself swaying along with the music without thinking. Adela made her way over to me and... I suppose the best description I can muster is that she began dancing at me. She got very close to my face. She bumped her hips against mine, almost knocking me over. I held my drink with both hands and held it in front of me like a shield. I had no idea how to dance alone, let alone with a partner. I don't know how to dance. It's easy. You just need to move. I am moving. We were both shouting over the music. Adela laughed and retreated away while I was still shaking to the beat of Flora's book drum. At the other end of the room, she beckoned to me. I relented, scooting forward, and I honestly can't describe what I did with my legs. Sums up most of my dancing. I just sort of moved them. Kicked them, perhaps. I would rather not dwell on it. Suffice to say, it was enough to pass for dancing, but not enough to keep Adela and the band members from giggling at me. These are nice memories. I hope I'm not boring you. The energy of the night decayed, slowly but surely. There had been a steady rotation of sisters between chess games and dancing, but the games of chess were now much less raucous. The dancers, myself included, were now sitting down, and Margaret was the last musician still playing a tune. She stood by the crackling fire, staring into the flames and plucking out a bittersweet tune. Her fingers moved delicately over the strings. The intensity with which she stared into the fireplace gave the impression that she was serenading the flames themselves. That's a really lovely tune. What is it? Thank you. I don't know, really. It's my own. I don't have a name for it. Oh. Well, it's beautiful. She turned away from the fireplace and flashed one of her sad smiles at me. I sometimes wonder if I ever had a single earnest exchange while I was outside of this cell. You and I, as we are here, this is as honest as it can get from me. I am free from reinterpreting whatever flickers across your face as your true intent. Speaking face to face is like reading a book with words that rearrange themselves. Aren't you going to ask me what it's about? Well, what's about? The song. It doesn't have words, so what could it possibly be about? Margaret smiled again. Still didn't come across as happy exactly, but there was some warmth in her face this time. Of course. How silly of me. I don't understand. I'm the one who doesn't understand. I keep asking you these questions as if you were anyone else. Am I so different? Compared to these women? She tilted her head towards the others who were all preoccupied in quiet conversations of their own. Very. None of them see the world quite like you do. That makes me sound a little too important. I didn't say you were better than them. And for that matter, I don't think they're better than you. Everyone here is just different. And you're different in a very interesting way. We speak the same language, but sometimes I feel like I barely understand anyone. Or that nobody understands you. I felt the same way. And I've often wondered, is the onus to change on you or them? Me. That was a quick answer. Well, why should it be anyone else's responsibility? Very noble. But by that same token, should it be yours? Because I'm new? And I'm more out of place than they are. There are more of you than me, if that makes sense. More people who have lived their lives outside of little rooms. I couldn't possibly demand everyone else start making concessions for me. It's very interesting. When I asked you what the song meant, what was your first reaction? Inside. In your mind, before you spoke. I thought, how can a song with no words mean anything? My response was earnest, I assure you. You're very honest. Does the music make you feel something, though? It's very sad compared to what you were playing all night. You can tell? That's wonderful. But still, your question is perfectly valid. There are no words, so how could it have any meaning? I came up with this tune when I was feeling rather melancholy. I think the notes match. These notes sound sad to me. I have no idea how I would know that, and even less of an idea of how you might know it. Anyway, it was silly of me to ask, but it does seem like deep down you understood me. That's fascinating, but I don't understand a word of it. She chuckled. This is the sort of thing me and Catherine used to talk about. Thank you, Hedwig. Is it really? Yes. I must admit, I'm cribbing from her work a little here. She asked me these questions almost exactly once upon a time, when I was new. I told her about how, when I was a little girl, it was the hymns that kept me interested in Mass. Despite not knowing what any of the lyrics meant, she laughed and said that was proof that God was in the music itself. I didn't understand what she meant at the time. I didn't agree. I might still have some complicated thoughts about all of it. But whenever I play music, I think about that. I miss her laugh. She began to pluck a new tune from her instrument. That was one of hers. What I can remember of it, anyway. I wish I could recall the whole thing. I had no idea how to respond to this, and endeavored to move past the evidently raw subject. One forlorn drunkard had been enough for me. Unfortunately, I managed to put my foot in my mouth instead. Margaret, you're from far away, yes? Here we go. Go on. And I may as well be from some place far away. Are we similar in that regard? Do we have a sort of kinship? As outsiders? I've lived my whole life in England, Hedwig. Wow. Tried to sidestep that pothole and fell right into a ditch, didn't you, Hedwig? Woof. As did my father. As did his father. And his mother, for that matter. So, no. Not particularly. She continued to strum her lute, but I could feel a sucking void in between each note. I'm sorry. The superior, well, at that luncheon, I must have misinterpreted. She smiled thinly, with none of the subtle humor her vexatious expressions often betrayed. I could sense that I had tested her patience. The superior has never once asked me about my life. Keep that in mind in case she's told you anything else about me. I must have looked a right fool as I gawped at her and tried to think of something to say. But just then, Hedwig, Head wig, wig, wig. Heady, 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 wig. The sudden intrusion made me jump. I turned around, but I couldn't see where Flora was. Down here. Flora was sprawled out on the stone floor. Her head so close to my foot that I might have tripped had I taken a step to the side. What are you doing on the floor? Convalescing. I feel sick when I stand up, but down here is good. That makes sense. Are you alright? Yes, this is normal, I think. Catherine said this is normal. I glanced across the room to Catherine, who was sitting at the table, looking only slightly more conscious than Flora. If I lay down for long enough, I will feel normal again. And then I can have some more wine. Oh, I think there's plenty left. That's a rather big cask. I bet I could fit in if I drank the rest of what's in there. I'm not sure, but I'm willing to find out. But I'd go steady now if I were you. Shh. Shh. I need to ask Hedwig a question. What do you need, Flora? Well, you used to make all those Bibles, yeah? And you know how to make pictures? You mean illuminating? Yes, that's what I said. Illuminating. Yes, Flora. I did a little illuminating. So. 2 ideas. I have 2 ideas for you. Well, go on, then. I can't wait to hear this. Idea number 1. Where is all the gold from that? The gold from the enumerating. Keep up. You mean the leaf? The gold leaf? Illuminating manuscripts involves a lot of colorful pigments, including gold leaf. I always enjoyed filling in little details like halos and jewelry with my little brush. I must admit, though, that wasn't my favorite color to work with. I was partial to the deep blue pigment I broke out for depictions of certain robes, eyes, and the ocean. Right! Where do you keep all that? I'm not sure. It would get brought to me in little pots every few months. I think the bishop brought them. Fuck! It's not here? I could feel myself turning hot with embarrassment and shock. Flora's drunken demeanor was already knocking me off keel, and her vulgar outburst set my teeth on edge. I don't think so. Sorry, Flora. Did you want to paint with it? No, I wanted... I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. I wanted to steal it! Think about it. We could be rich, and we could split it half and half. 3 ways. I want in on this deal, too. Fuck! Fair's fair, I suppose. That's... Flora, how could you? Hedwig, I don't think you need to take this very seriously. Plotting to rob the Abbey, or worse, the diocese itself, this is very serious. You're no fun. It's paint, Flora. What Hedwig means is that the gold isn't worth anything when it's paint. Oh. I knew it was too good to be true. Tough luck. What would you even do with all that gold? If it was really gold, I mean... What do you think? Us three, we'd get out of this flippin' Abbey. Go someplace far away. She gestured broadly with her hand, I presume to imitate a bird or the wind or something. Aw, bless her. Why would we want to do that? Because I hate it here. Tears started welling up in her eyes. I had no idea what to say. Flora. And let's get you up. Come on. She extended a hand down to Flora. I followed suit, although I'm not sure I was much help. We dragged the poor girl to her feet and brought her one of the chairs by the fireplace. She looked positively sodden. I hate it here. I hate it so much. There. Surely you don't mean that. Margaret shot me a look, and for the first time ever, I could sense true venom behind her eyes. Yeah, I'm looking at that portrait right there. That is different. It was the briefest flash of anger, but it was enough to make me feel like a flower looking up at a boot. Why do you hate it here, Flora? There's nothing to do. I'm all alone. Margaret reached out and clasped her shoulder. You aren't alone, but I understand. I am, though. There's no one my age here. No one talks to me. I don't know what I'm doing here. I never wanted to join a convent. She broke down into little hiccuping sobs. Margaret got down on one knee and squeezed Flora's hand in hers. I was too much of a coward to follow suit. All I could do was stand there stupidly, hoping that some of the immense pity I was feeling would be detectable to Flora and Margaret. I wanted to help, but I had not a single earthly idea what help looked like. You never had a choice, did you, Flora? Flora shook her head. I miss Catherine. I do too. She would talk to me. She was you lot's age, but she at least knew how to listen. She was the only one who felt like a real sister to me. I opened my mouth to point out that sister was merely a title, but thought better of it. Catherine made time for everyone. I'm sorry if it feels like we haven't made any time for you, Flora. I can try harder. But I like being alone. She started sobbing again. I was bewildered by this contradiction, but Margaret just smiled. I do understand. I really do. Us old fogies aren't much fun to be around, are we? Flora shook her head and Margaret chuckled. We're all you have, I'm afraid. Well, not if I leave. You can't leave, Flora. None of us can. Our vows are perpetual. They don't have to be. Edward broke hers, and she was an anchoress, or what have you. That was different, Flora. How? I had an answer for this, but I could not share it. Instead, I had to stew in the uncomfortable silence between the three of us. I'm certain that's a more complicated situation, Flora. Well, maybe I could be complicated. I would be happy telling people it was complicated if they asked how I could leave. There's always other convents you could transfer to one day. You could go to London or Spain. I'm sure they have a lot more nuns your age and abbeys that aren't in the middle of nowhere, like our boring old place. I remember when Catherine and you were planning a visit to Italy. Yeah. Maybe we can try and put something like that together again for you. I just hate to see you break your vows and throw your life away. Would that be so bad? Yes. The two of them turned to look at me inquisitively. A trace of the same rage I had sensed earlier flickered behind Margaret's eyes, but I forged onward. Take it from me, Flora. Don't break your vows. Your life might feel difficult sometimes, but those struggles are nothing compared to the regret you would feel breaking that oath. If the guilt didn't consume you, the world would. No man would marry you. No lord would want your service. You would have nowhere to go but back to the church. And then you would be right back where you started, feeling all the same things, with the added yoke of despair that no matter how hard you threw yourself into the work, no matter how much you believed in your vows this time, that you had made that choice, that you were once an apostate. That's a millstone that you could never take off. Flora looked ready to burst into tears again. Margaret had cast her eyes to the floor. How would you know? Because that's how I feel every day, Flora. Sister Margaret is right. My choice was complicated. But I've regretted it every day since, and I will for every waking moment of my life. You don't want to end up like me. Hedwig is right, Flora. Leaving this life can be very tempting, but there's really nowhere else to go. Well, I don't know. I don't know if that makes me feel any better. I promise I will do whatever I can to make you feel more at home here. Hedwig will too. Won't you, Hedwig? Yes, of course. Thank you. She sniffled and pulled her hand away from Margaret's. She twiddled her thumbs together in her lap and feebly attempted a smile. I guess it's just the wine. I mean, where would I go? You can still travel the world if you really want to. There's no reason you can't ask the Superior to send you somewhere nice one day. We just don't want you to throw your life away. Believe me, everyone in this room has been where you are right now. Really? When I was your age, I once tried to escape in the back of a delivery cart. I was going to hop off in the village and get a boat across the lake. From there, I'd hitchhike to London, marry a wealthy man. Maybe a visiting dignitary or something of the sort. I had big ideas. Why didn't you? Margaret grinned. Her eyes were slightly glassy. Catherine had more or less the same conversation with me that we're having with you right now. She begged me to stay. She asked what she could do to convince me. And? Well, that's when I said I wanted to play the lute. We all remained silent for a moment. Flora, forgive me, but earlier you said you had two ideas. Is there something someone else could do? Oh, that. No, it was nothing. Go on. Tell us. Well, I was going to ask if you could teach me what you know about illumination, Hedwig. After all, I'd need some skills if I were to ever leave, wouldn't I? You wanted to steal a bunch of gold paint to fund your life on the run as an artist? Beats art school! Flora looked affronted at first, but eventually joined in with a quiet chuckle of her own. Shove off. No, I like it. It's better than my plan was. Well, I'm rubbish at drawing, so a bit of a non-starter. Hedwig will teach you. Won't you, Hedwig? Margaret's tone was light, but she was looking at me with grim intensity. Yes, of course I will. I can't promise much. I've only ever worked on illuminated Bibles, but just the basics. That's all I need. That's right. It's good to start somewhere. Catherine taught me about music, and she wasn't exactly Hildegard. Flora stood up from her chair. She was wobbly on her feet. I remind her that she was still very, very drunk, as she lurched towards me. She threw her arms around me unannounced, marking the second time this evening that I had no idea how to respond to somebody's touch. Thanks, Hedwig. You're all right, you know that? Give the lady some space, Flora. She probably doesn't want to smell your wine breath. Why don't you go eat something? Flora released me from her embrace and gave Margaret a vaguely affirmative hand gesture. She spun around on her heels, still a little unbalanced, and wandered off towards the table. Goodness. Haven't seen anyone get that pissed in a while. I don't know. I see that regularly either when a relative dies or when a relative gets married. But hey, Irish families, what are you going to do? Did I say something wrong? I don't think so. I think we did the best we could. Did you mean it? Mean what? About breaking your vows. Do you really feel that way? Oh. Yes. There was no sense in walking things backward. Huh. Why did you do it then? In retrospect, I probably would not have made the same decision. That's why I felt it was worth telling Flora. Margaret nodded thoughtfully. Well, lovely chatting with you. She picked up her lute from the chair next to the one Flora had been sitting in, and then left to put it back on the shelf. Crumbs, what's gotten into Flora? Catherine had wandered over to our side of the Misericorde, nursing a drink in one hand and resting the other on her hip. Oh, I think she just had a little too much to drink. Too right. I heard her bawling over here and thought to stay out of it, but now she's at the table yammering on and on about cats. How are you faring? Me? I'm, well, having fun. To a degree. We've been consoling Flora. It worked. She's back to being quite irritating. Well, you can thank Hedwig. She's the expert. Ooh. Did you impart some of your anchorous wisdom? Yes, I suppose I did. It was tough, but it was what Flora needed to hear. Marvelous. I still remember visiting your odd little window and asking all about something or other. You were quite a blunt instrument, if I recall. Was I? I once came to the window to ask what the punishment for breaking a promise was. You were prepared with a whole lecture about how I shouldn't be taking any oaths in the first place. With several citations from Matthew on hand, of course. I'm afraid I don't remember that. It was years and years ago. That doesn't surprise me. Do you remember many of our questions? Do you know who asked what? I remember questions, but not who asked them. And I wouldn't tell anyone if I did. Good. I mean, not why I was asking. But good. Oh, why were you asking? So, how's your first thingy? Oh, it's been fun. Don't worry about Flora. Someone always cries at one of these. Sometimes more than one person. Oh no! It's her more often than not. Me? Me crying? Absolutely untrue. I have a reputation to maintain. Uh-huh. Adela's flipped the table over, someone started getting weepy. I'd say you're getting as rigorous an education in Misericorde etiquette as you possibly could have. It's certainly been a learning experience. Oh, but it's been fun, right? We're having fun. Catherine was just as wine-addled as Flora had been, but it was clearly affecting her differently. Flora had almost seemed like a different girl. Catherine was simply multiplied. Yeah, this is what it was like for me when I still drank. I was basically the same, just louder, and slurred my S's more. Which, when you have a first name that begins and ends with S, that is a bad situation. Whatever clarity she had been experiencing when we chatted by the fire earlier had been enhanced with a slightly manic energy. I'm having fun. Yes, absolutely. Good, good. Because you know the Superior would have me hanged if you didn't have a good time. Oh, really? Did she put you up to this? Oh, good heavens, no. I can just intuit these things. You know? I can just see her bearing down on me because you complained. Oh, I don't complain to the Superior. Well, that's good. I mean, not that you have anything to complain about. Sorry, I wasn't insinuating you would complain, just that... By the way, actually, did you know that Cow Angela complained about me to her once? To get back at me for... I forgot where I was going with this. You were going to sit down and take it easy, I think. Yes. Thank you, Margaret. Yes, I was. I could sense that my window was closing. Catherine was a very different kind of drunk than Flora, but it seemed like she, too, was not far from falling to the floor. Actually, Margaret, could you give us a minute? Of course. She looked a little confused, but she obliged. Love her. Very clever. Isn't she just? Margaret's wonderful. Catherine, I've been meaning to ask you something. It's very important. If it's about the cat, it isn't mine. No, it's not about the cat. And I need to get Eustace or one of the other crafty ones to help me with my door. I'm sorry if it bothers you. Does the door bother you? No, it was now or never. James. I spoke to James. He says you can vouch for him about the night Catherine II died. Can you? Is that true? Catherine's brow furrowed slowly, and her eyes adjusted in a strange and unexpected manner. It was like I had forcibly sucked the wine out of her somehow. You spoke to James? What did he say? Not much at all. He professed his innocence, though, and he said you might be able to prove it. Something to do with his traveling cloak? What traveling cloak? The one Darcy found. I was speaking in a whisper lower than I had known I was capable of. I was terrified that someone might overhear, but there was no turning back now. Not here. We can't talk about this here. Not with everyone else around. Then when? And where? Everyone turned to look at the door in unison. Are we expecting something? Perhaps Sister Darcy brought more food? Moira, who had been sitting closest to the door, stood up to answer it first. She removed the bolt, swung open the door, and... Ah! Moira fell onto her backside and scrambled away from the door on all fours. Everyone else screamed and wailed as soon as they saw what was at the door. The same hulking figure that had threatened me at the end of the hallway all those nights ago. The cloaked figure lumbered forward, its metal boots thudding against the stone floor. Everyone had made to the back of the room as fast as they could, all yelling at the top of their lungs. I myself felt absolutely petrified, but I could not bring myself to move. I just stood there, assuredly white as a sheet, unable to move. I felt like my heart would give up if I took even one step. The monster took another labored step toward me. I stood there dumbstruck, as if it brought itself before me. A gauntleted hand reached from under its cloak. With a horrible grinding shriek, it drew its sword! Everyone screamed again! They were practically baying! Cease your feeble inquiries, Sister Hedwig! I'm not afraid of you. Could you believe that this was not a lie? Faced with the sword, I felt an odd sense of peace. The glint of the blade in the candlelight, it offered me a noble release from the predicament I found myself in. Do not force my hand! Cease! Did you not hear me? I am not afraid. Then you truly are a fool. Strike me down then. I will gladly die in service to the Lord. I will gladly give myself in defense of what is right and just. If you would have me killed for pursuing the truth, then so be it. I could practically hear everyone's head tilting in confusion at once. A musical chord of rustling fabric. I grow tired of this conversation. Consider this a warning. Still pointing their sword at me, the figure took a lurching step backward, only to trip on its cloak. Huh. The women who had been huddled behind me rushed forward. Adela grabbed the sword that had fallen out of my assailant's hand and held it at their neck. Adela, stop! Remove your disguise, cur, before I cut off your head and remove it myself! The cloaked figure held up their hands defensively. Their hands looked far too small for the bulky gauntlets they wore. I glanced down at their legs and was shocked to see that they were twisted and broken. Your legs! Are you all right? Oh, yes, let's make sure this creep's legs are unharmed. Stop. My legs are all right. The voice sounded less ragged and imposing now. The figure shifted their weight, and I realized that the big metal boots they had been wearing had simply come off in the tumble. With a sense of resignation, the monster lifted its hands to the black cloth mask concealing its face, and... Eustace? Surprise.